Today, I have something very special to review, a 2011 Porsche Panamera S. Now, the Panamera nameplate is iconic within Porsche's lineup because this was their first foray into making a four-door sedan. Usually, they made two-door sports cars, but the market was leaning towards wanting a fast vehicle on the weekends, but wanting a family vehicle during the week. And this was Porsche's answer to that, the Panamera. Later, you had the Panamera S, the Panamera GTS, and the Panamera 4S. This one here is the S, and we're going to be taking a look at it today. Now, an interesting fact about this particular Panamera S is that word on the ground is that this was the second one brought into the country. And even though it's a 14-year-old vehicle purchased all the way back in 2011, it only has 16,000 kilometers on the clock. This vehicle hardly drives. 16,000 kilometers over the course of 14 years is just about 1,000 kilometers per year. I cover that in 2 weeks. But let's stick with the tires for a moment, because the word on the street again is that the last set of tires that this vehicle had weren't changed because they ran out of tread. They were changed because they expired. Now let's talk the tire size and pricing. Up front, you have a pair of 255 40 20s Michelin Pilot Sports, each costing $3,000 exact conversion. But get this, at the back, the tires are actually wider. So while at the front is 255, at the rear, 295 35 20s. And these come in direct conversion about 3900 TT. And that's direct conversion if you're buying it yourself online and bringing it in. If you purchase it locally, one rear tire is probably about $4,500, close to $5,000. But you do need good tires when you are driving around a vehicle that is 4,000 pounds, which is only 600 pounds lighter than a base Toyota Prado. And it's also not a small vehicle because it comes in just a hair shorter than a Ford Ranger. So it's heavy and it's big, but it also has the power to pull its weight. But we will get to that later on in the video. Up front, you have your daytime running lights with your indicators in one assembly, and then above that, you have bi-xenon headlights with auto leveling. So when you turn the vehicle on and the headlights turn on, you have the cool animation where the headlights start low, then come high, which means no matter what load you have at the rear of the vehicle, the headlights will auto level and provide the best beam pattern for the road. Just to the front of that, you have a headlight cleaner nozzle, so this pops up and sprays water onto the headlight to clean it. And then below that, you have this one opening, which is where you can see a radiator and a condenser through. There's no intercooler, there's no turbo pipes, nothing. All you're seeing here is your condenser and your radiator. People say that the Panamera isn't a nice looking vehicle. I beg to disagree, especially given this coupe-like design at the rear. I love it, except the fact that blind spots are everywhere at the back here. Those C-pillars are huge. Now, most people don't like it because of the back. The back is kind of wide. It's wide and bulky. And that bulkiness can come back to bite you the minute you realize that this particular generation of Panamera has no backup camera. You have reverse sensors, but no backup camera. So you're just reversing based on the sensors and skill. But you do get quad exhaust at the rear. And this is not no trickery where it's like one exhaust and a pipe at the end or a tip at the end. It's 4 exhaust pipes coming out the end. You also do get active aero. When you look at it, you can't tell that there's a spoiler here. But those who already know, they're already pointing it out. Just below the rear glass, yes, there's a spoiler hidden below the rear glass there. So it pops up either at a certain speed or with a push of a button inside the cabin, and it retracts again when you go below the certain speed or when you push the button again. Now, what I would say is, I'm not sure how much downforce it provides. I'm not an aerodynamicist. They know what they are doing. It doesn't look very useful to me, but it looks damn cool popping up. Added to that, you also have the Porsche active suspension system, which gives the Panamera S the ability to change the damper stiffness on the fly electronically. And you also have air suspension, so it can raise or lower the entire vehicle by a few millimeters depending on what setting you have it in. You also do get a powered liftgate. And once you are in there, you are greeted by this velvet-like material everywhere. At the back of the seats, over the wheel well, even in the corner where you have your power outlets. You have one power outlet on one side, which is the left-hand side. And even there, you have this velvet-like material. When you talk about attention to detail and craftsmanship, this is what you talk about. You don't see any exposed welds, any exposed welding lines, any bolts exposed. Everything is just covered up. Even by this divider here, you have soft touch materials below it where your hands will never feel. Having a trunk full of suede and soft touch materials has to be a flex. Below that, you don't get a spare tire. You get a tire repair kit, your tools, and your Bose sound system amplifier. Stepping into the Panamera, you notice two things quickly. One, you are greeted with leather, and not fake leather, but real actual leather that wears like leather. And two, there are only two seats at the rear. They wanted to make a family sports car, but I think the sports car aspect won out. But if you look at the seat placement, both rear seats are actually pushed further into the vehicle. Those seat pillars are huge. Look at the amount of space you have, the edge of the seat to the edge of the outside layer of the car. Most automakers push those seats far out so they could put a center seat in the middle. Think of the safety involved here. In case of a side impact, you have an entire crumple zone to the left and the right of the rear seat passenger. Just one more cool thing that you can do when you don't have to worry about making a mass production vehicle. On the headrest, you also have the Porsche badge stitched into it. So if you forgot what vehicle you were in while moving, you can look back and you can see the Porsche badge there. Also, you have a sunshade, which is controllable from the front or via a button by the rear AC vent. Not like the sun can be a bother to you all the way in there anyway, but it's there. You have a single cup holder in the center, but look at this. You have 4 AC vents at the rear of the Panamera. First, you have this vent on top there. Below that, you have a conventional type AC vent that you can turn left, right, up, down, or on and off. And then in the center, at the rear of the center console, you have a further 2 AC vents. And in the middle there, you have your sunshade control. And then the same thing on the other side. So in total, you have 4 AC vents at the rear, but only 2 seats. This has to be the best vent to person ratio of most vehicles. Most vehicles have 2 at the rear for 3 persons. This has 4 at the rear for 2 persons. Excellent. Up front, you have more of the goodness. You have real leather, and then you have this wood grain finish that goes from the doors all the way to the front over the dash, all the way to the other side. Everything is just well put together and well built. This is what you call craftsmanship in a vehicle. Let's take a closer look at the front. On each door, you have 2 speakers. You have your window controls, more leather, the wood grain finish with a type of brushed metal inlay at the bottom. And look at the door handle. It's almost like it's indented, like they cut the wood grain finish and put the door handle in there. It's not just resting there, it's actually in it. You have your memory seat controls. Same thing on the other side, obviously. Leather, wood grain finish. Now, here the side effect of having all this leather in the vehicle. This vehicle is 14 years old, but it still smells like a brand new vehicle. When I got into it for the first time, I was like, wait, what's going on here? It still smells brand new. Like how it smelled when it rolled out of the showroom, this is exactly how it smells today because of all this leather and different materials. Now, usually where I would say the car has a 4-way power adjustable seat or a 6-way power adjustable seat, well, the Panamera has all the power adjustments. Look at how much controls you have. Every bit that can be adjusted can be adjusted. Also, these seats aren't standard. These are the upgraded sport seats. This vehicle was fully spec'd out when it came out the showroom. And the exact same thing on the other side. Most vehicles have maybe a 6 on the driver's side and a 4 on the passenger side. No, same controls left and right. And talking about controls, I love, and I always did, Porsche's implementation of buttons. I'm not sure if they're still like this, but these early Porsches, they had buttons for everything. You have an array of buttons on top here that make you feel like you're a fighter pilot. Most of the buttons would have been buried in a touchscreen menu somewhere in 2025. But back in 2011, you had a button for everything, even the sunroof. Whereas today, you have all these features just in an iPad menu somewhere stuck on top of the dash. I love the implementation of buttons, and the buttons continue because below that, by the gear shifter, you have more buttons. Physical buttons for your AC controls. Physical buttons for where you want the air to come out. Heated seats physical button. Raise and lower the spoiler, raise and lower the sunshade to the back, auto start stop, you have your traction control on or off, your ride height adjust, you have your comfort setting or sport setting for your suspension, sport on or off, heated seats and everything for the left hand side. You have your HVAC buttons on top here, hazard, you have your lock unlock, right, left, for your AC. You have a small screen so you can see what the temp and the fan speed is. This is the temp, fan speed. And you all heard that, right? When you interact with the button, you get an audible click that just sounds nice to the ear. Like I pressed that button there. And you actually feel the tactile feedback in your fingers. This is something that no touchscreen can recreate. When you pull back this gear lever, you mean business. You're going from park to drive because you're about to drive a vehicle. It really makes you feel like you are handling something, like you are in control of something. There is some weight involved. This is automatic. This is manual. What I also love, and this is very unique, yes, you have dual zone climate control, but you also have dual zone for the fan. So if I take this off, put this on mono, so only one side has air. This side has no air. So on top of the temp being controlled independently left and right, you could have no air coming out from the entirety of the left hand side, all the air coming from the right hand side. This is one of the few places where the Panamera S is showing its age. The infotainment have no Apple CarPlay, no Android Auto, no wireless connectivity, no backup camera, nothing, just radio. You have minimal settings, but the driving dynamics makes up for that. Plus, you have all those buttons. So all of them buried here are actual buttons. And added to that, your infotainment, this screen is located where it's supposed to be, in the dash. And I know more and more automakers are going the cheaper route right now, just build a dash and then stick an iPad on top of it and put all the menus in there. That way you don't have to actually design a dash, but this is actually better. Up front, you have two hidden cup holders that pop out from this little flap underneath the dashboard here. And then when it's out, obviously this is a Porsche, you can't have it looking ugly. So you have this flap that is folded back up to block it. So you can have your cup holders, one for the driver, one for the passenger. But when that's in use, you push this back in, you push the other side back in, and you close the flap. You have a lit glove box with soft touch materials in there as well, but look at it, it's small, it's practically useless. Your insurance certificate, the manual for the vehicle, and that's all I can fit in there. This is the first time I've driven a vehicle that has paddle shifters like these. You have controls on either side, but each can go up and down. For example, you have a plus or minus on each side. So let's put it into gear. It always starts off in 2. So you can downshift or upshift on either side. Upshift, downshift. Upshift, downshift. That's pretty cool. So you don't have to worry about my hand over here or maybe a hand over here. No, each side, up and down on each side. Now tell me this will make you feel like a fighter pilot. You have a large rev meter in the middle, aka the tach. Then you have your speed off to the left. Then further left to that, you have your oil temp and your oil level. Maybe it's the oil pressure. I think it's the oil pressure. And then all the way over to your right hand side is where you have your engine temp. And then next to that, you have a rounded screen that shows you relevant information. Like for example, fill up your water reservoir, you have a tire pressure monitoring system fault, your trip meter, all of that is shown right there. And while I understand digital gauges are all the craze right now, I actually prefer this than just a screen showing me everything. This had to be designed to look this cool. It didn't look cool on accident. They had to sit down with multiple drawings to make this look the way it looked, and you can tell that it was well thought out. So this is how you start the Porsche. I have the key. So once the key is with you, keyless entry, open, close, all of that. But you have this physical thing here that doesn't come out. You have to turn it and it starts. It's like they wanted to give you the push button experience, but somebody said, nah, let's keep the turnkey experience. But what powers the Panamera? Well, it's powered by a V8 naturally aspirated engine that puts out 400 horsepower and 369 foot-pounds of torque. That's enough to propel the Panamera S from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 5.2 seconds to a max speed of 175 miles per hour or 281 kilometers per hour. Now, the fascinating thing there to me isn't the fact that it's a V8, isn't the fact that it has 400 horsepower, it's the fact that this is a naturally aspirated engine. So there's no trickery taking place. There are no turbochargers. There isn't a supercharger. There's no 200 horsepower motor paired with a 200 horsepower engine to get you 400 horsepower. Everything here was engineered to put out 400 horsepower. Even the transmission, Porsche's PDK dual clutch transmission, even that just acts a bit more professional in the execution of its duties. You know, everybody says my dual clutch transmission shifts gear in 0. Whatever milliseconds, and then you drive it and it's like this thing is lagging. It's changing gears and just lagging. This 7-speed PDK setup, none of that. Another cool thing that I love is that there's no all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive to get you off the line. It sends all the power to the rear wheels and it's up to you to keep it in line. Or you can play it safe and keep traction control on always, like I have it on here now. You can tell it's on because the light is flashing. When traction control activates, if you watch by that clip, I'm not making any corrections with the steering wheel. Whatever trickery or magic is happening behind the scenes, the back end just sorts itself out. You can tell that there's a momentary loss of power once the rear wheels are searching for grip, but once you find the grip, you're off. The way that V8 pushes you back in your seat is something that you have to experience for yourself. And when you look in the rearview mirror and you see a spoiler coming up with the active aero, it just looks so cool. It's like you see it on YouTube, you see it on TV, but seeing it happening in a vehicle that you are driving, it just makes it that much cooler seeing the active aero pop up behind you while driving. But the thing about it is, after you're done messing about on the weekend, you can have a nice, comfortable, quiet drive on the way to and from work during the week. Porsche nailed it with the Panamera. It's a family sports car, and I think cars like these ushered in this generation of sports cars that are also family cars that we saw after this. Because you have to remember, vehicles like these were designed to transport heads of industries. When I say head of an industry, I don't mean the manager of a department or the supervisor of a department. I'm talking about the head of an industry, and do so in comfort, because it's all fun and games when you're young, 19, 20, 21, 25. You can buy a two-door sports car that has a suspension that rides like you are on literal big stones, but it's a performance vehicle. But as you get older, you still want that performance, but you also want that performance with luxury. And that is where the Panamera hit the mark. Because I'm driving here, and listen to this. You can have an entire conversation while driving. No one around you has to know that there's a V8 under the hood. No one around you would know that this was just you a few minutes ago. And given the size of the vehicle, the average person who don't know about cars won't know that if you really wanted to, you could gap them. But you didn't gap them because you didn't want to. It's having power that you choose not to use. When you have this much power under your right foot, you have to always be on top of the vehicle, because one lapse and you're over the speed limit. I am going to give the Porsche Panamera S full marks. As a matter of fact, it's directly because of driving this vehicle. Going forward, I'm coming up with a rating system for all other reviews after this. And on the top of the list right now, as it stands, is the Porsche Panamera S. Let's see who could knock it off its throne. But when it comes to the driving dynamics, I know this is something cliche to say. It's a Porsche, obviously it drives good. But the driving dynamics is on point. You have the power on top with that massive V8 engine. You have that nice exhaust note when you need it. Normally it's subdued, but when you get down the accelerator pedal, you can really hear it in the back of you. And the driving dynamics is on point. You turn the steering wheel, and every vehicle that you drive, the vehicle will turn. But it's hard to quantify and put into words how the driving dynamics feel in the Porsche Panamera. You turn the steering wheel, and obviously it turns, but it just turns more precise. Sure, it's ridiculously expensive to buy, it's ridiculously expensive to maintain. One tire is like 3,500 and you can't rotate them. Sure, but most of all, it puts a smile on your face in this short life that we live on planet Earth. And for that, full marks for the Porsche Panamera S.